day of success, because I have taken what was once only imagined and made it real. That's right, and making it real is this Johnson hollow body guitar, the first hollow body that I've ever had, with beautiful blonde maple on the front and on the back. It's just a really breathtakingly beautiful guitar. I found it on Craigslist and went over to see it. When I played it, it was terrible. I mean, half of the notes in the middle of the neck wouldn't even tone. So it needed a lot of work, still does, and that's what we're going to do today. I just put brand new strings on it, so we're going to put it on the bench and make it in top shape, as you can really do with most guitars. It's pretty rare to find a guitar that you can't make quite a lot better and immediately playable with just a minimum of effort, really. It doesn't take that long. So let's get this beauty over here for a little tune-up. What do you say? Alright, so here's the new Johnson lying down, and I've just put D'Angelico strings on it. These are the Electro Zinc model. I did a big article on different electric guitar strings, so if you haven't caught that on SeriousGas.com, it's got recordings of each type, including this one, so you can hear the differences. Based on those recordings, I chose this because it sounds like the perfect string for this type of guitar. This type is used a lot for jazz, if you're playing straight jazz in nightclubs, or even if you're going for some rockabilly. And this set of strings would do great for that. It's a little darker. Alright, so the first thing that I did, as soon as I got the strings on, I took my straight edge. This is a stainless steel straight edge ruler with cork on the back, and I put it on the neck. Before I do anything, I just want to make sure I don't have severe fret problems. This guitar, online I have found a few people who found pretty severe fret problems with this. So I put it on there, take a light, shine it in the back, and as you do so, you can see if you have any fret problems, whether you've got rolling ups or downs. If there are any gaps on any of those frets, you know you've got a problem. Do it in the middle, do it on the side, and on the other side. Now I did this looking straight across at the neck and really didn't see any issue with the frets, so I'm glad. I was actually expecting to have to do a fret job with this as well, but I don't. But get a straight edge, put it on the frets, shine your light, and you'll be able to see if there are gaps between some of the frets and the edge. And if you do, if it's inconsistent, you'll have to address that, all right? Alright, I've changed the camera angle a bit so we can see clearer. The tools we'll need for step one of setting up our guitar, and that's going to be adjusting the truss rod. The truss rod runs through the center of the neck and either brings it forward, making it more concave, or if you tighten it, it starts to bow the neck back, making it more convex. The tools we'll need for this: a capo. I'm going to use my Thalia capo, the best capo I've ever owned. Even did an article about it on SeriousGas.com if you want to check it out and know why this is the most versatile capo I've ever used. We're going to put that right on the first fret, on the metal, not between the metal as we usually would, but actually this time on the metal fret, the first one. Next, you're going to need feeler gauges. Most people don't have these, but if you're going to set up your own guitar, you want to get these. Seriously, they're awesome. So these are strips of metal. They're each going to have a different width. The measurement is right on there. You can see this one is 0.010 in inches. And that's exactly what I'm going to use to fit between the fret and the string to see if I have the right measurement there. And if I do, great. If not, we'll adjust the truss rod. You'll need just a simple screwdriver which takes the truss rod cover off if you have a cover. This is the cover that I have just taken off, which just slips right down in there and covers that up. There's the 3 screws. And finally, oh, by the way, you might not have a cover for the truss rod hole, or you may have an older guitar where the truss rod screw is actually right here at the end of the neck. But chances are it's going to be here, and most of the time there's going to be a cover. This is what I prefer to use for adjusting the truss rod. It's made by Fender. It's their truss rod adjustment tool, and it allows me to turn as much as I want without getting in the way of any strings. You want to do this adjustment with the strings on. Why? Because you want it set up with the tension just like when you play it. So if it's set up just like when you play it, and you do a measurement and it's off, well then you know you've got to fix it, right? So the truss rod tool can just go right in there, and then you would turn it in very small increments. Usually not much is needed at all. You don't want to go all crazy on it, all right? And if you hear any creaking or squeaking, just stop and let a professional deal with it, because that's often a sign that maybe you're going to break something in there, and that's a much bigger issue if you happen to break the truss rod. All right, so now what I'm going to do, so I'm going to stop, adjust the camera. We're going to actually adjust the truss rod now in playing position, which is where you should do it, with everything on as I told you. All right, here we go. Okay, so you can see the guitar is now upright in playing position. I'm going to take the capo, and we're going to put it right there on the metal of the first fret. Okay, not on either side, right on the metal. Then, where the body of the guitar meets the neck, that's the crossroads, baby. Start playing the blues. That's where we're going to put our finger. And then in between here, we should have just a little bit of play. Yeah, so the string is coming up just a little bit. That feels pretty good. But to be absolutely sure, we need our feeler gauges. So I've got the feeler gauge here, 0.010. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press down where the body meets the neck. Okay, then I'm going to use this light just to make sure that I can see really, really well. So I press down. I'm going to put the feeler gauge between the 7th fret here, between the metal and the string. Now if it hits the string and has to push it out of the way, then the neck is too far back and I need to adjust it. If I put this in and I can move it up and down because there's too much space, that's too much space. So I need to bring the neck bowed back more, which would make it convex. All right, so let's see what we've got. Pressing down, seeing if I can slip it through. Okay, so it slips easily through. I think there's just a little too much space. See how it's not pushing that string at all? Plenty of room. So, because of that, I need to make an adjustment. Let's go ahead and take our Fender truss rod adjuster, and we can put it in here. And you can feel when it locks in. See, it's not locked in yet. Oh, there it is. Because when I push it back and forth, it feels like it's locked in. Now, because there's too much space, do you think it's too convex, or do you think it's too concave? Concave. The neck is too concave. If it gets more concave, there'll be more space between the strings. So because I'm dealing with space between the strings, I need to make it more convex. So now that we have it in there, which way do we turn it? All right, here's the trick. I thought this up and it always helps me remember. If I want the neck to come more forward, to make it more concave, I think of a caveman in his cave counting rocks, because that was their form of money. Oh, I got 52 rocks, man, we're rich. And why counting? Because counterclockwise will make the neck come forward and make it more concave. So think caveman counting, counterclockwise brings it more concave, like the caveman. If you remember that, you're gold. If it has to go the other way, then just go the other way. But if you remember the caveman, and I'm sure you will, because I certainly did, that will help you. Now, because I have too much space here, not a lot, but still too much, that means I don't want it more concave, I want it more convex, so I need to go the other way. So if concave is counterclockwise, then if I have too much space, I need to go clockwise, which will bring the neck more convex back this way, all right? Now watch, I'm not going to turn it much. You usually do not need big increments, very small increments. Start with 1/8 of a turn, all right? Just like this. There, just 1/8 of a turn. And then what do? I go back, I take the feeler gauge, press down where the body meets the neck, and I do the same thing again and seeing if it made a difference. Yep, because now I can just barely feel that string rubbing on the gauge. It's not stopping the gauge, but it just is barely touching it. And that's all I need. 1/8 of a turn. That's all it took to bring this into perfect truss rod alignment. All right, now let's move on to the bridge. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the bridge. This is a tunematic bridge, similar to what you'd find on a Gibson. It's also a floating bridge. This whole assemblage from this wood on up slides, and I can move it anywhere. I can take it right off. So, first thing we want to do is see if the action of the guitar, how far the strings are off the fretboard, is good for us. We can adjust it with these two wheels. These are thumb wheels that can raise or lower the bridge, and that directly affects the action. But first, let's measure it and see what we need to do. I suggest you get one of these, AZ Music String Action Guide, or Gauge. It tells me everything I need to know dealing with my guitars, and it's cheap, so just take the time to go get it, man. And you'll save serious cash by not having to let other people do the setups on your guitar. You can do it yourself. Alright, so down in the corner, you'll see there that it says 1/64 inches. That's what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to put that right next to, first of all, the low E string, right behind it there. And I'm going to put it again where the body meets the neck of the guitar. Sometimes I need a flashlight because those are really small increments there. And I'm looking to see how many 64ths of an inch high between the top of the fret and the bottom of the string. And right now I have 5 64ths, and that is exactly where this type of guitar should be. A hollow body archtop guitar. On the low E string, you typically want 5 64ths of an inch as the action. So, I'm not going to have to raise or lower this post. But we also want to do it on the opposite side of the neck to get good balance. So I'll do the same, where the body meets the neck. I place that right there, resting on top of the fret. And I look to see how much it is. And this is set at 4 64ths. Somewhere a little between 3 and 4, actually. But closer to 4. Now, you typically, for this type of guitar, want it at 3 64ths, but I had it at 3 64ths, and I played it, and I didn't like it. It felt like, as I was going through my scales, that when I got to the top 2 strings, it felt way too low. So, what did I do? I came over here and adjusted it. Now, for the thumb wheels, if you want it raised, then you're going to turn it counterclockwise. Okay, so counterclockwise raises it, clockwise lowers it. So when I felt that it was just a little too low, I counterclockwised it, right? I can even do a little more right here. Just turn it Now I find I can turn it with no problem. Some people find it too tight, they can't turn it. They also make a guitar tool that kind of sits under there and pries the bridge up so you can turn it. I really don't think you need it unless you have weak fingers. But hey, if you're playing guitar, you don't have weak fingers, right? You got strong fingers. So that's really it. As far as the action, and as far as the truss rod, this thing is gold. So, we're moving on. Step 3. Let's go. Okay, so next we're going to take a look at the nut and make sure that the nut is where it should be. To do this, we're going to use our thickness gauges again, our feeler gauges. This time we're going to use .018. Don't know if you can see that. .018. And that's going to be what we insert between the first fret and the low E string. Now, as I do this on this guitar, it's going through without hitting the string, so that's good. Looks like I have a little bit of room, just a hair. So what I'll do is I'll just move that out of the way. I'll take a file, and again, these little files are so inexpensive. You can get these so easily. And they actually make different file sizes. You can get the appropriate file size for the string size that you have. Like I usually use 4 2s or 4 6s probably on this guitar. So this file is appropriate for that. I'll just take it and go in there a little bit. You don't want to do too much because obviously it's a lot easier to file away than it is to somehow create more. That means you'd have to probably replace the nut, so we don't want to do that. Alright, so now let's check. And I still have some room there, so let's do it again. Alright, back up. And this time, wow, there's still just a hair, but you know, I played it before I did this, and I thought it felt fantastic, so I'm not going to do it anymore. If you feel like it doesn't feel great and you really want to take it down more, you can, and you can do that for the rest of the strings. But I think the nut is also good on this, so thumbs up, way to go Johnson. Another good thing that I don't have to change. We just took a little bit, but I really don't want to do more because I think it feels great. Alright, final step, here we go. Alright, last step, the intonation of the guitar. You want your guitar to be in tune up and down the neck, not just down here where you do some chords once in a while. So to do that, we're going to have to deal with the saddles. Now the string, every string on the guitar vibrates from the saddles to the nut. And where these saddles rest, either higher up or lower near the bottom of the guitar, will determine how much in tune this guitar is, all the way up and down the neck. But check this out. Because we are doing an Archtop hollow body, we have a floating bridge, which means this thing can be taken right off. No screws, no bolts, it's just setting right there on the wood. Because of that, it can easily be knocked out of place. Now sometimes on guitars, you'll notice this little groove, this kind of corner to the F-holes. Many times that's a judgment call that the luthier makes when he says or she says, I'm going to put the bridge so that it lines up with those notches. However, this is an example of a guitar where it definitely does not. It seems that the bottom of the pickup is in line with that little corner, but the bridge definitely is not. So that cannot be our guide. So your first, number one thought is, do you know the scale length of your guitar? If you bought your guitar and you had a knowledgeable salesperson at all, or you have the internet where you could look it up, Google can tell you, what the scale length of your given guitar is by the model number. For this particular Johnson 440, the scale length is 25.5. So I could, using that measurement, put this exactly at 25.5. How do we do that measurement? Well, let me show you. We start at the nut. So I'm going to take my stainless steel ruler and I'm going to place it right up against the nut of the guitar, and I'm going to measure to the 12th fret. That's the 12th piece of metal. I've heard some people say in the middle of the 12th fret. Luthier told me that is not true. You do it to the actual piece of metal, the 12th metal fret. Which on here we've got 12.5 plus 1/16. So that's not really exactly 25.5 that I looked up on the internet. Not even really close. So whatever the measurement is here, you double it, and that is your scale length. Okay, so with this, we've got 25 and 2/16 would be my exact scale length. So, for this guitar, I would then take it, place that right there at the 12th fret, and then we would move down, and at 25 and 2/16 I would place the bridge. However, it doesn't always work. With this guitar, it didn't. I spent a lot of time trying to get this in exactly the right spot. And in fact, I even moved the bridge in many positions, really close to the pickup, far away from the pickup. I tried lots of combinations for about an hour, just on the placement of the bridge. Why? Because when I measured it and went exactly 25 and 2/16, I couldn't get it intoned to save my life. I moved the saddles all the way to the extremes and it still was not on. So what do? You just have to troubleshoot. You have to find the sweet spot of your guitar. I also noticed, which you will when I take this off, look at that bridge. Is that straight? No, not even close. But what I determined by trial and error was that I could get the whole neck intoned properly if my bridge were slightly askew. If the treble strings, if I had those a little longer, and the bass strings were a little shorter. This is the best intonation I could get out of the guitar with this measurement. And let's see, instead of 12.5 and 2/16, now let's see actually where I ended up putting the bridge. So based on where the saddle is, the bass string is 12.5 and 4/16. The treble string is 12.5 and almost 3, between 2 and 3/16. So notice that the placement of the saddles is different, right? All of them, I had to adjust each one to try to get this perfect. And I did. So when you're setting up your Archtop, you got to do the same. You have to really play with it. You have to adjust it. You have to try, make some mistakes, and find out where that sweet spot is. Where does it live? Where your guitar is going to sound the most awesome. So once you get the bridge placed in the best position you can, where it's closest to intonation, then we adjust the saddles, and that takes even more time. So let's cut to that. Now I've already taken an hour getting this thing almost perfect. It takes a while because once you do one string, it's going to affect the other strings, and that's because of the tension that it holds between the bridge, the nut. Everything affects everything else. So once I got one right, I found another one had gone off a bit. I get that one right, I go back and do yet another one. Right now, it's pretty darn good. You want to do this again with the guitar in playing position. And what we want to match is the open string Notice my tuner here, my awesome Peterson tuner, is giving me, so it's just a hair sharp. We'll get that back where it's floating nicely. There we go. So I want the open string to match the 12th fret. Let's see how that goes. Almost. And then also the harmonic. So the harmonic looks good. Looks like we're just a hair flat, hardly any, but just a hair flat on that high E. So here's what we do. If you find that the 12th fret is flat, that means we need to shorten the string. So in other words, the saddle needs to come this way. If I found that the 12th fret were sharp, then I would need to elongate the string and move the saddle that way. But as you can see, let's bring that so it's perfectly still. 12th fret. Well, now that's pretty much on. Still just a hair flat, so we'll do it just to show you what needs to be done. So, very, very little. We are going to move this. This screw, I've already determined that clockwise lengthens the string. Okay? Clockwise lengthens the string. Now, because of this being just a hair flat, I don't want to lengthen the string. That would make it flatter. I want to shorten the string and make it sharper. So therefore, I'm going to go counterclockwise. So put it in there, and this is going to move that saddle that way. Okay? Just usually lift it just to free it a bit. Now let's see. Watching here. Still can be turned a little. I'm still seeing just a little flatness. So again, I'm going to turn counterclockwise, which will move the saddle this way, shortening the string and bringing it sharper. That is so close, it's hardly moving at all. Yeah, I call that good. So, once again, just to reiterate, you do that with every string, and yeah, it's going to take a while. This is the lengthiest process in all 4 steps. To get every one of these perfectly intonated takes a while. First thing you do, tune the open string. Next, play the 12th fret and see if it matches. Then play the harmonic and see if it matches. If they don't, you need to adjust the saddles. And remember that bringing the saddle this way is going to shorten the string, making it sharper. Taking the saddles back this direction will elongate the string and make it flatter. Make sure you know which way the screws work on your particular bridge. On mine, clockwise lengthens, counterclockwise shortens. But your guitar may be different. Alright, so you gotta do that. Otherwise, as much as I like Indian music and a good raga in the morning, we don't want to sound like Ravi Shankar on our guitar. At least not unwittingly, right? So we gotta know what we're doing, and we gotta start with the perfectly set up guitar, which this now is.
So many guitars, so little time. Now you know how to take your hollow body, set it up, and make it sound amazing, just like I did with this Johnson guitar, which is pretty cheap really, but you can take something cheap, expand upon it with the right set of skills, and make it awesome, just like I've done. This is Teaj with G.A.S saying, go make sounds!